Hi, class. Um, Welcome back through these hard times. I want to apologize for not getting content to you all sooner. My father passed away on St. Patrick's Day, and our family dog a few days after that. So last week was kind of a bad one for me. I hope this video finds you all are doing well and getting used to our school at home, work at home, whatever you may be doing to keep you and your family safe. So today I'm going to present chapter 8. I should be able to do chapter 9 as well. This is a Zoom meeting. It's a new tool I'm using at Greystone, and I wanted to see how the experience was for our class. Twofold, it'll be let me get practice sharing documents in the platform, plus see if we can give a different um, means to communicate in our class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share um, our PowerPoint, and we'll be off and going. So like I said, we're going to look at Chapter 8, Securing Information Systems. We're going to see why information systems are vulnerable. We're going to see the business value of security and control. We're going to look at the components of making sure we're secure and control. We'll look at some tools for safeguarding information resources. Our homework for this week is the cyber espionage case, the Chinese threat. The video is like 20 minutes long, so a lot of good amount of time. I posted a forum today on how Huawei and how they've become, public enemy number one to the U.S. government. And it kind of relates to this Chinese threat video and the NBA Akamai video. So I left two forums today, that Huawei and one on Nike supply chain. They're open-ended, so they don't have an end date. But if possible, I want those done by the 31st, if not the following Tuesday. We won't keep those open forever. I also want to point out, I know that we're an online class and you're used to the platform, but if you're having difficulties managing your other classes that have become online, please use me as a resource. I may be able to help, maybe able to guide you, making things a little easier as my colleagues get used to using iLearn and other online tools to be able to present to you. The whole Marist faculty community is here for you all. So why are systems vulnerable? Well, we're really vulnerable because us as people don't take security seriously. Much as we've seen your peers partying down in Florida when they were told not to, we do the same thing with our computers. We don't update them with security patches. We don't download the latest antivirus patches. We get lax and think nothing's going to happen to us until one day your CEO sends you an email saying, "What is this?" and he's been attacked. So that's really why we're vulnerable, because we as humans don't do enough to protect ourselves, and we don't produce um, good enough applications all the time. Remember, we talked about Microsoft and the feasibility of them having 100% flawless software. It's not really possible for them. So there are holes. So we have to look at policies, procedures, and measures to prevent unauthorized access, alteration, theft, and damage. Yeah, true. Pretty much what I do at Greystone, spending half my day teaching people how to be more secure working. It's even gotten harder these days as we're 100% work at home company right now for our admin staff. So we had to teach different ways to keep our network secure while connecting through virtual private networks or the remote access tools. So we're also vulnerable because so many people have access to networks. We have access to tools that can sit outside our homes and steal our Wi-Fi. We have disasters. We have pandemics, as we're seeing now. and we have loss and theft of portable devices. And another real life situation came up at Greystone yesterday in that a group of our support staff needed remote scanning tools. And they don't use the same Adobe platform as the rest of Greystone does. So we had to come up with a way to give them a secure platform where they could take photos and create PDFs. Well, that leaves us a little vulnerable because if they lose their iPhones, we don't have that material on the cloud. So it leaves us a little vulnerable for loss there. But it's a risk we had to take for a short-term solution. So this again just goes over what we talked about in the previous slides. We see some ways we're vulnerable. If we start from the left to the right, we have a client. We have them connecting to corporate servers. We could have wiretapping. We could have sniffing, which is people looking for network traffic. We could have people sending malware, spyware through phishing attacks to change messages. We can get hacking, malware, vandalism, denial of service. It's going to come up somewhere in the slides, but an organization's biggest threat is internal, and it's from their IT staff. Because we know the vulnerabilities, we know the procedures around securing our systems, and we know how to get around them. And we could steal data, copy data, alter data, do harm to physical hardware. We could put bugs in the software we're writing. So not only are remote, what's a good word, invaders, something we have to worry about in our organization, we have to always worry about me, now the computer criminal. Though I'm not, we have to worry about me. And another story that came up, we're using Microsoft Teams now heavily in Greystone, and this person in our C-suite, seeing that I was a member of their team, and went to my boss and said, Al is on our team, we can see our messages. Well, I don't because I can't be bothered looking at their messages. I have my own job to do. But me as the sole IT management source has access to every piece of data in our organization. And I made them aware of that yesterday. Really, management can't hide. We have to be transparent. When we're hiding, we're leaving ourselves vulnerable to people like me trying to find out what's going on. So we know the internet is our world's biggest wide area network connected through millions of routers. Remember, routers were devices that connect to networks, which have IP address or internet addresses attached to them. Well, why are we vulnerable? Well, we have so many ISPs. We have so many customers now with the internet. We have email, which is very susceptible to phishing attacks. We have people sending links. Now I get them all the time on my personal cell phone. Phishing attacks through text message. So a good point, if you don't know the texter, delete. You don't expect the email, delete. You don't expect an attachment, delete. Don't open things blindly. You get an email with a link in it and you're not expecting it, delete. There's a famous wrestler called Matt Hardy. My son and I, up until this year, watched wrestling together. We don't really watch as much anymore. But there's this Matt Hardy guy. He was known for this delete, delete, delete catchphrase. Well, we're going to use that when you're working with the internet as well. If you don't expect it, delete, delete, delete. So wireless security challenges. So we can easily see 10s, 20s, depending on our population around us, people's Wi-Fi SSIDs, service set identifiers, network names. We could see if they're locked or unlocked. Now, if they're unlocked, we can easily go in and use someone else's internet, do harm. And it may not even be harmful. We could slow them down by putting all of our traffic onto their network. I mean, geez, up until 10 years ago, people were leaving their wireless networks unsecured. War driving is where, and I know this stuff happens, I've never seen it happen, but people sit outside buildings detecting open SSIDs, or they do key logging to see people's credentials to get into these SSIDs, and we're able to get into a corporate network to do harm. A rogue access point is where an IT person like me puts up an access point that's meant for someone else to connect to outside our organization to do harm. I hope we're aware of the next few slides. They're types of malicious software. Malware is the known term for anything that's evil. Mal, Maleficent from Disney days, Mean Lady. Ware is the second part of software, so malware is malicious software. It includes spyware, viruses, worms, Trojan horses, the like. So worms and viruses are spread from downloads, going to malicious links, things like that, and they spread from computer to computer. We're seeing now malware on our mobile devices, kind of like I just talked about with the phishing through text messages. That's meant to get access to your cell phone data. And with our reliance on mobile technology these days, that's our biggest piece of protection we need to look at in 2020. People are attacking our mobile networks. Same thing with our social networking. Again, we're not downloading things from social networks, please. We're not accepting friend requests from people we don't know. I know this is the Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok age where we want everyone and their mother to be following us, but in actuality, it's a quite dangerous thing. Keep it to people you know. Keep it to people in your communities. Talk about. On this slide, I really want us to be aware of ransomware. Ransomware is the most devilish type of malware. It's where an attacker will hold your data hostage for Bitcoin. If you don't pay in a certain amount of time, they simply delete your data. The easiest way to protect against ransomware is backing up your data somewhere not on the device you're working on, not on the network that you're connected to. Because if we're attacked, we can rebuild the data and not worry about paying some criminal in Uzbekistan 400 Bitcoin to get our data back. Spyware is really a nuisance. They're not really looking to take over your computer to do harm. Our viruses and worms are really meant to use your computer resources to, stream porn, stream illegal gambling, stream illegal downloads of movies and videos, building out people's networks through clustering personal computers. Whereas spyware can install keyloggers where we capture your keystrokes, we reset your browser or search pages, or your computer gets real slow. So if you've noticed that you're going to Google to search, or if you type in the URL in a browser, say Fly Emirates, and again, I'm not very creative. I'm looking at a signed Arsenal jersey in my sports room here where I'm recording. Their sponsors Fly Emirates. So we're searching for Fly Emirates and you expect to get to Google and you go to joeschmosearch.com, you know you have spyware. Same thing if you start your browser and you expect to go to marist.edu and you go to toysusedtobeurs.com, then you know you've been a victim of spyware. Hackers versus crackers. Hackers are bad guys. Crackers are usually hackers that are now good guys. I use a company called HackerOne at times to penetrate my networks to see how well I'm doing. I've given you all access to this KnowBe4 home security training, and I do the same for my employees at Greystone. One of the biggest trainings we get in KnowBe4 is from a former hacker who is now chief hacking officer for KnowBe4. So he's turned a criminal into a good guy who's now teaching us all how to invade them. Hackers want to get into your systems, either do damage or do something vandalous. Okay. Denial of service attacks were the big corporate attack before ransomware really hit. One happened a few years ago in New Hampshire, shut down Amazon and Twitter for some time. What it does is a hacker sends millions of requests to an organization's router. That router doesn't have enough capacity. A router is simply really a computer that routes traffic. And when it gets overloaded, it really shuts down. It shuts down your people behind that router no longer can access the internet. I had one denial of service attack in my career while I was at Security Capital Assurance and before it became Syncora Guarantee. And we were shut down for 2 days because of this denial of service attack. It was really geared to our former parent company, XL Capital, but they got us as well. Spam, I hope we all know what spam is. It's things we don't really need that we're getting that's really a nuisance. And you can think of spam this way. If you've ever gone grocery shopping for yourselves or with your family and you're down the processed meat aisle and you see the blue can of with yellow letters, it says spam. Spam is a pork-like substance, very gelatinous. I ate it as a kid while on scouting trips because it lasted forever and a day. The only way to make it good is to fry it in a pan, and then it still wasn't good. So if you're going to equate spam meat to being bad meat, spam is bad email. Some new crimes we've gotten out of the computer age is identity theft, credit card theft, things like that. It all starts with getting your credentials to your banking system or your social security number. I'm taking very care with my father's estate. We haven't gotten the death certificate yet, but I've not told any of his people he worked with, banks, social security and whatnot, that he has passed until I have that death certificate so I can pass that along. Excuse me. Once they have proof, they can shut down his social security number, and now someone can't steal who he used to be. We've talked about phishing, evil twins and farming we're not really going to talk about. Click fraud, again, is getting you to click where you're not supposed to click. Cyber terrorism and warfare, you'll see a good handle on with this week's video case. It's companies that are hired to break into other companies to steal trade secrets. We talked about me, the employee, being our biggest threat already. We've talked about software vulnerability issues already, where we can't possibly make 100% flawless software. So we have bugs. And what we do to fix those bugs is really what is protecting us. If we're not patching, we're opening our computer up to an intruder. A 0-day vulnerability is where an attacker attacks a known bug before it can be fixed. Again, a patch is a piece of software, typically from Microsoft. Apple doesn't patch as much as Microsoft does that repairs system flaws. We do see a lot of updates in Apple's iOS platform, however, because their need to update that platform is greater than their need to update their operating system for their desktop and laptop computers. What's the value of security and control? We see failed computer systems can lead to significant loss of business function, meaning if we can't do our work because of something that happened because of a security flaw, we've lost dollar value. We've lost value in wages. We've lost maybe the ability to bill customers, receive monies, things like that. We could lose trade secrets. Um, Remember, one of the reasons to invest in technology to begin with was the possibility of changing our business model. We could lose work we're doing on new products and services. We could lose financial data, or more importantly, data about you, the employee. Security breaches can cut into our value, and it can be a liability to you and your customers. I've been at Greystone now 3+ years. We had one attack. We had nothing lost, no financial data lost, no personal data lost, no loss at all. But what we did was we took a little hit in face value because we had to release to our customers, our parents, and the people we do business with that we were attacked. We're now very strong security wise, so God willing, we don't get attacked again. So ways we're now protecting personal data and financial data is through acts. The HIPAA Act, medical security and privacy rules. It's really how I manage my security day to day these days. When I worked at Syncora, it was right around the time when Enron was blowing up and the Sarbanes-Oxley came about. The Act provides controls and testing around how we protect financial data. Forensics and electronic evidence. There are professional companies that will go in and, based on algorithms and machine learning and data warehouses, they'll look at your entire set of data to get evidence out for whatever legal reason is out there. We see evidence for white collar crimes is digital. Proper control of data can save time and money when doing legal discovery. It's a very intense process. I worked with a great group of forensics people when I was at Syncora. We were getting sued a lot as we were running down the business. So we were always diving deep into terabits of email data and file service data to be able to get proof that we were doing what we were supposed to do or that we didn't do what we were supposed to. Our controls are either automated or manual. Oftentimes they're going to be manual because the automated tools will be too cumbersome and costly for us to look at proving our worth year to year. We look at design, how we use our computers and our programs, how we secure our data, how we secure our data centers, our hardware, our change control, things of that like. Risk assessment. I just had a financial audit at Greystone and we got dinged on risk assessment. We don't do enough really to look at the types of threats, probability that we will be attacked, any potential losses, value of that threat, and expected annual loss. What we do is we put a cybersecurity wrapper around our organization that's worth about half our expected revenues for any given year, and we run risk like that. It's an area I'm going to have to look to change this year, however, especially looking at the risk now. I was lucky enough to have a business continuity plan in place that I could move employees to their homes rather easily without any business interruption. But that's a risk I'm going to have to take a look at in the future to see what we can do better to make sure Greystone is here next year. This is just a sample risk assessment to see what we would do and what kind of risk we would be willing to take. And our interactive proof question, our embedded question per se, deals with risk. So I would like you to tell me the type of risk I tend to take monthly with the New York Lottery. So yeah, I'll get into power failure, embezzlement, user error in a second. But if any of you've played scratch off tickets, and I do so every month, I haven't done so recently, but I used to do it every month. Well, let's look at the risk there. If we spend $1 on a ticket and we would expect to win 85% of the time, but our return is $2, do we buy a $1 ticket? Maybe, maybe not, probably not. The $2 ticket, we have an 80% chance of winning, we'll make $5. We may buy one every now and again, but again, we're not going to really worry about losing $1 or $2. The $3 to $5 ticket, you'll win about 70% of the time. You'll expect to make back your money up to $10. We'll still take the risk. The $10, $20 ticket, our chance of winning is about 50%. We'll win up to $50 on average. Now we're getting a little hazy. We may not take the risk. I tend to buy a $25 or $30 ticket every month, just one ticket. Chance of winning is about 30%, but I can win on average $200. So once a month, I'll take that risk. But to me, $30 isn't a lot. To college students, I've run this scenario in the past, and most are willing to go up to the $5 risk, but not the 10 to 30. So, question for class, I'm going to change it a bit, so ignore what I said before. What risk do I take monthly, and what risk based on the lottery are you willing to take? Now this slide. If we have a 30% chance of failure of power, and we could lose on average $102,000, but we expect to lose $30,000, do we put in a backup generation system? Yes, every day of the week. Because the risk is still great enough that we're going to have substantial loss. Embezzlement has a 5% occurrence. We expect to lose $1,200. On average, we'll lose $25,000. Will we do anything about embezzlement? Probably not. And user error, 98% of chance occurring. Our expected loss is close to the average loss. We'll do something to make sure our users are properly trained. A security policy is a document like the information system policies we've seen before that shows us risks, what our security goals are, and how we achieve those goals. It includes an acceptable use policy for our IT resources and how we control access to systems. Audited on both of these every year as well. Disaster recovery and business continuity. They are not the same thing. A lot of people do, including my current boss. Disaster recovery planning is how we recover if we don't have access to our data, meaning our data centers. Business continuity, which I'm going through now, is what do we do if we don't have access to our physical workplace? Different rules in place, really totally different document. However, within both documents, we make reference to each other. So in my BCP plan, I have a link to my DR plan. My DR plan, I have a link to my BCP plan. Auditing, we've talked enough about. Tools, how we can safeguard systems. Identity management. At Maris, since we're using Office 365 now for email and collaboration, we use something called Microsoft Azure to maintain all of our Marist accounts. Previous to Azure, Microsoft's platform was called Active Directory. I use both within Greystone. That's how I tell who is who, what computer is what computer, and who has access to what. And furthermore, we look at what type of authentication is available to us. Generic password systems, which we're used to in our Maris systems. Token smart cards not really around too much anymore. Biometrics is where we use either your retinas or your fingerprints to log in, or two-factor where we either use biometrics and a password and a secure token on an application to access our systems. A firewall we talked a bit about in our previous chapters. It's a device that keeps intruders out, but lets us leave our networks where we want to go. You think of it as think of it like this. Sorry. In our homes, if you have a boiler room where there's a flame to heat your house, heat your hot water, whatever, that room is encompassed with what's called fire-rated sheetrock. So what happens if there's a fire in that mechanical room? The sheetrock actually eats up the fire and suppresses the fire so it doesn't reach your living areas. Well, a computer firewall, either hardware or software, does the same thing. It's keeping, excuse me, bad traffic out of our network, but allowing the good traffic out. And it does through from packet filtering, application proxy filtering, natting, things like that. And this is what a corporate firewall may look like. You may have an outer firewall where our web server sits in between an inner firewall and a corporate system. However, with the days of cloud, we're mostly hosting these systems on someone else's hardware. So oftentimes we just have an outer firewall that protects our organization. Ways we further protect our organization, we talked about antivirus and anti-spyware already. And the other one is intrusion detection system. Oftentimes we can install tools on our firewalls where we can see where we're vulnerable and we'll put resources there. I in particular use a product called Darktrace that shows me not only what's happening at my firewall, but every bit of data that leaves every one of my connected workstations and servers. How do we secure our wireless networks? Don't even look at WEP. WEP was an encryption key strategy that is long since gone. Now it's pretty much using WPA2 standards. Do you need to know any of this? No. Just realize that when you put in the password to your, say, home wireless network, that it's encrypted so attackers can't read it and makes you very secure. I'm not going to bore you with encryption or digital certificates. We can read about those in our text. It's just a process of turning zeros and ones, digital signals, into junk that hackers can't read, that you can only open up with a key, either a public key or a private key. And that's what encrypts and decrypts the data for you. It's pretty much not visible to you guys. It's good to know that you have encryption and it's working, but it's not something in this class that we really need to focus on. Ensuring system availability. 100% availability is a not realistic goal. Unfortunately, we can't guarantee 100%. We typically guarantee 99.9% because we can't really predict failure, power outages, software failures, and the like. So we want to under promise and over deliver. We want to make sure that we have as close to 100% as we can, but not advertise it. Security in the cloud is just like security anywhere else. We have to make sure that our data is segregated from other providers that may be on the same hardware. We still want to have secure access to our cloud data. We want to have firewalls around the virtual data. We want to have other tools in place for intrusion detection and mitigation. Let me ask how we secure our iPhones, our Android devices. The big thing we can do is make sure we're updating our software. We'll make sure we're using two-factor authentication. We want to make sure we're doing backups. We want to make sure we're reporting when we lose our devices. In Greystone, I use MAS 360 for our tablets from IBM. It's a mobile device management tool. For our laptops and our regular cell phones, I use Microsoft Intune. And we do them to make sure we know where the devices are and that we can erase devices that are lost. Excuse me. How we ensure software quality, it's through end user involvement in our development process, which we'll look at in chapters 12 and 13. We want to test our software as it's being developed. It's called stress testing, where we max out the number of transactions that we have at any given time, payroll checks, things like that, and make sure that our application will still work under stress. If it doesn't work under stress, we have to go back and fix so we can stress test again. That's what walkthrough and debugging does in our software quality discussions. That's it for chapter 8, guys. Let me know what we think of the Zoom platform, and we will come back to you with chapter 9 shortly.